The fitting room smelled like lavender and my mother's expensive perfume. I stood on the pedestal while the seamstress pinned the hem of my wedding dress, her mouth full of straight pins, her brow furrowed in concentration. "You look beautiful," my sister Claire said from the velvet chair in the corner. She was scrolling through her phone, barely looking up. "Really? Dan is going to cry." I smiled at her reflection in the three-way mirror. Claire and I had the same dark hair, the same sharp cheekbones our grandmother used to call the family blessing. But where my eyes were brown, hers were green. Our mother's eyes, the ones she'd always said Claire got to keep. "Thanks, Cece." I used her childhood nickname, the one I'd stopped using when we turned 16 because she said it made her sound like a baby. But lately, I'd been trying to close the distance that had grown between us over the past few years, trying to remember why we used to share a bed during thunderstorms, why I used to let her borrow my favorite sweater even though she always stretched the neck. She looked up from her phone. "Have you decided about the something borrowed?" Mom offered her pearl earrings. Claire's smile flickered, just for a second. "That's nice." The seamstress stood up, brushing chalk dust from her hands. "I'll need about 2 weeks for the alterations. Try not to gain or lose any weight before then." I stepped off the pedestal carefully, the silk train pooling behind me. "I'll do my best." As I changed back into my jeans and sweater, Claire stood by the window, her back to me. She was thinner than the last time I'd seen her, 2 months ago at Thanksgiving. The collar of her blouse hung loose around her collarbone. "How are things with Mark?" I asked, pulling my sweater over my head. "Fine." "Just fine?" She turned around, and for a moment, I saw something raw in her expression. Something I couldn't name. "Mark is Mark. You know how he is." I didn't actually. Claire had married Mark 4 years ago after a whirlwind 6-month courtship. He was older, 43 to her 28, with a good job in finance and a quiet way of speaking that made me think he was always holding something back. They'd bought a house in the suburbs, adopted a golden retriever named Gus, and seemed to be doing exactly what you were supposed to do. But Claire never talked about him the way she'd talked about her college boyfriends. She never got that flushed look, that breathless quality that made her laugh too loud and touch someone's arm when she spoke. She had talked about Dan that way once. I pushed the thought away. It was ancient history. Dan and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 1. Whatever Claire had felt for him back in high school, if she'd felt anything at all, was water under a very old bridge. "He's coming to the rehearsal dinner, right?" Claire asked. "Mark, I mean." "Of course. Everyone's invited." She nodded, picking at a thread on her sleeve. "Good. That's good." The night before the wedding, the restaurant looked like something from a magazine. String lights crisscrossed the patio, and the caterers had arranged centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus. 50 people milled around with champagne flutes, and for 1 perfect hour, everything felt exactly right. Dan stood beside me, his hand resting on the small of my back. He was wearing a blue blazer I'd bought him for his birthday, and he kept leaning down to whisper things in my ear that made me laugh. "You're nervous," he said. "I'm not nervous. I'm excited." "Your hands are shaking." I looked down at my champagne glass. He was right. "Okay, maybe a little nervous." He kissed my temple. "Tomorrow, you're going to walk down that aisle, and I'm going to be standing at the other end, and nothing else is going to matter, just you and me." My mother appeared at my elbow, smelling like white diamonds and tension. "The photographer wants some family shots. Claire, where's Claire?" I scanned the crowd. Claire was standing near the bar, talking to my father. Mark was nowhere to be seen. "He's on a work call," Claire said when I walked over. "He'll be back in a minute." "Everything okay?" She looked at me, really looked at me, the way she used to when we were kids, and she wanted to know if I'd eaten the last piece of cake. "Everything's fine. Go take your pictures." The photographer posed us in front of the restaurant's stone fireplace. My parents on one side, Dan's parents on the other, Dan and me in the middle. Claire stood next to my mother, Mark still absent. "Where's your husband?" the photographer asked. "He's coming," Claire said. Her smile was so wide it looked painful. Mark appeared 5 minutes later, his phone still in his hand, his expression distracted. He slid next to Claire and put his arm around her waist. She stiffened almost imperceptibly. "Sorry," he muttered. "Work." The photographer took the shot. In every copy I have, Claire's eyes are somewhere else, fixed on a point behind the camera. On Dan, I realized later. She was looking at Dan, but I didn't notice that at the time. At the time, I was too busy being happy. I woke up at 6 a.m. to the sound of rain. For a moment I just lay there in the hotel bed, listening to it hit the window. Then I reached for my phone and saw the weather app. Scattered showers until noon, clearing by 3. The ceremony was at 4. "See?" my maid of honor Jenna said from the other bed. She was already awake, scrolling through Instagram. "It's going to be fine. The universe wouldn't dare rain on your wedding day." The next few hours were a blur of coffee, hairspray, and my mother's increasingly frantic instructions to everyone within earshot. By noon, the rain had stopped. By 2, the sun was breaking through the clouds. By 3, I was standing in front of the mirror in my dress. And I had never felt more beautiful in my entire life. "You ready?" Jenna asked. I nodded. "Where's Claire?" "She's in the bathroom. She said she needed a minute." I walked down the hotel hallway and knocked on the bathroom door. "Cece? You okay in there?" The door opened. Claire's eyes were red, but her makeup was flawless. She'd done it herself. She'd always been better at that kind of thing than me. "Just nervous," she said. "I hate being a bridesmaid. All that walking in front of people." "You've been a bridesmaid 3 times. This is different." She looked past me, down the hallway toward the suite where my mother was probably reorganizing the flower arrangements for the 5th time. "This is you." I reached for her hand. "I'm glad you're standing up there with me. I know things have been weird between us, but—" "Weird?" She laughed, but it came out wrong. Bitter. "Is that what we're calling it?" I pulled my hand back. "What's that supposed to mean?" The bathroom light made her face look pale, almost gaunt. When had she stopped eating? When had the hollows under her cheekbones gotten so deep? "Nothing," she said. "Forget it. Let's go get you married." The ceremony was perfect. The sun came out exactly when it was supposed to. The string quartet played the song I'd chosen when I was 12 years old and first dreaming about this day. Dan's eyes filled with tears when he saw me walking down the aisle, and I had to look away so I wouldn't start crying too. Claire stood beside me, holding my bouquet during the vows. Her hands were steady. Her smile was flawless. If anyone noticed that she didn't look at Dan once during the entire ceremony, no one mentioned it. The reception was in full swing by 7 o'clock. The band was playing something slow, and Dan had his arms around me, and I was thinking about how I wanted to remember this exact moment forever. The way the fairy lights reflected off his watch, the smell of his cologne, the feeling of being completely, utterly safe. "I need to tell you something," Claire said. She was standing behind me. I turned around, still holding Dan's hand. "Can we talk? Alone?" Dan squeezed my hand and let go. "I'll get us some champagne." I followed Claire to a corner of the patio, away from the music and the dancing. She was holding a glass of wine, not champagne, which was weird, because the open bar wasn't serving wine yet. "What's going on?" I asked. She took a long drink, set the glass down on a nearby table, looked at me with those green eyes, our mother's eyes, and said, "Dan asked me to run away with him." The world didn't stop. The band kept playing. Somewhere behind me, my father was laughing at something my uncle said. But inside my chest, something cracked. "What?" "He came to see me last week, while you were at your bachelorette party." She was speaking quickly now, the words tumbling out like she'd been rehearsing them. "He said he'd made a mistake, that he should have chosen me, that he only proposed to you because he thought I was happy with Mark." I shook my head. "That's not true. That's not— Dan loves me." "Does he?" Claire stepped closer. I could smell her perfume, the same brand she'd been wearing since high school. "Then why did he tell me he thinks about me every time he looks at you? Why did he say he wishes it had been me?" My hands were shaking. I shoved them into the pockets of my dress so she wouldn't see. "You're lying." "I'm not." Her voice was soft now, almost gentle. "I'm sorry. I didn't want to tell you, but I couldn't let you marry him without knowing." I stared at her, at the flush on her cheeks, the way she kept glancing over my shoulder toward the bar where Dan was standing with his brother. "Show me," I said. "What?" "Show me the texts, the calls. If he came to see you, you must have proof." For just a second her composure slipped. I saw something flicker across her face. Fear, maybe, or calculation. Then she shook her head. "I deleted them. I was trying to protect you." "Protect me." The words tasted like ash in my mouth. "You deleted evidence that my fiancé was cheating on me, and you're calling that protection?" "I didn't want to hurt you." "Claire." I grabbed her wrist. "Tell me the truth, right now." She looked down at my hand on her arm. When she looked back up, her eyes were wet. The truth is that he was never yours, not really. He was always mine. I found Dan by the bar holding 2 glasses of champagne. "What did Claire want?" he asked, handing me one. I didn't take it. "She said you asked her to run away with you." The glass slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the stone floor, champagne spraying across his shoes. People turned to look. "What?" "Last week, while I was at my bachelorette party. She said you came to see her, told her you'd made a mistake." Dan's face had gone pale. Not the pale of guilt, the pale of shock. "That's insane. I haven't spoken to Claire alone in 2 years. Not since she tried to kiss me at Mom's birthday party." The world stopped this time. "She what?" He grabbed my arm and pulled me away from the crowd, toward the edge of the patio where no one could hear us. "I didn't tell you because I didn't want to cause problems. It was a weird moment. She'd had too much to drink. I pushed her away and left. I thought it was over." "When was this?" 2 years ago. Right after she and Mark got engaged. She showed up at my apartment and started saying all this stuff about how she'd made a mistake, how she should have said yes when I asked her to prom." "You asked Claire to prom?" Dan closed his eyes. "Junior year. Before you and I were anything, she said no. She was dating some senior from the private school. I was crushed for like a week, and then I got over it. I was 15 for God's sake." I leaned against the wall. My dress was getting dirty, but I didn't care. My sister had tried to kiss my boyfriend. My sister had lied about my fiancé on my wedding day. My sister had looked me in the eyes and tried to destroy everything I loved. "Where is she?" "Don't," Dan said. "Whatever you're thinking about doing, don't. Not tonight. We'll deal with it tomorrow." "Where is she?" He hesitated. Then, I saw her go inside, toward the restrooms. I didn't go to the restroom. I went to the coat check, where my phone was charging in my clutch. I scrolled through my contacts until I found Mark's name. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay?" "No," I said. "Everything is not okay." I told him everything. Not just what Claire had said tonight, but what Dan had told me about the night 2 years ago. The attempted kiss. The jealousy that had been simmering beneath the surface of every family dinner. Every holiday. Every casual interaction I'd mistaken for awkwardness. Mark was quiet for a long moment. In the background, I could hear the murmur of the reception, the clink of glasses. "She told me Dan was in love with her," he said finally. "When we first started dating, she showed me old pictures of them together at prom. Dan didn't go to prom with Claire. He asked her, and she said no." "I know." His voice was flat, hollow. "I found out a year ago. Found the yearbook in the basement. He's not in any of her photos." "You stayed?" "I confronted her. She cried. Said she'd been insecure, made up a fantasy because she was scared I'd leave her. I believed her." He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I'm an idiot." "You're not an idiot. You're someone who wanted to believe his wife. She's been comparing me to him for 4 years. Mark's voice cracked. 4 years of Dan would have done this, and Dan would have said that. I thought she was talking about some ex-boyfriend I didn't know, some ghost I couldn't compete with. But it was him. It was always him. I closed my eyes. In the distance I could hear Claire's laugh, that bright, brittle sound she used when she wanted everyone to think she was having fun. "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be. You just gave me the last piece of the puzzle." He paused. "I'm going to call a lawyer on Monday." "Mark, I'm not angry at you. I'm angry at myself for ignoring the signs." Another pause. "Congratulations on your wedding. I hope you and Dan are happy." He hung up before I could respond. I found Claire in the bathroom, fixing her lipstick in the mirror. "It didn't work," I said. She didn't turn around. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Dan told me about the night you tried to kiss him, 2 years ago, at Mom's birthday party." Her hand froze, the lipstick tube halfway to her mouth. Then she set it down on the counter and met my eyes in the mirror. "You weren't supposed to find out about that. You tried to destroy my wedding. I tried to save you." She turned around, her back against the sink. "He's going to hurt you. They all do." "Dan has never hurt me. You have. You've been hurting me for years, and I was too stupid to see it." Something shifted in her expression. The mask cracked, and underneath it was something raw and ugly and desperate. "You have everything," she whispered. "The wedding, the man, Mom's approval. You always have. And I'm supposed to just stand there and smile and pretend I'm happy for you? Yes, I said. That's what sisters do. I tried to kiss him because I wanted to know what it felt like to be chosen. Just once, just to see if it was different when it was me. And was it? The silence stretched between us. Somewhere outside, the band started playing our song, the one Dan and I had chosen for our first dance. I should have been out there. Instead, I was standing in a bathroom with a sister who had never stopped competing with me, even when I hadn't known we were competing. No, Claire said quietly. He pushed me away, said I was drunk, said he loved you. Then why didn't you stop? Why didn't you get help? Why did you marry Mark and spend 4 years torturing him with a fantasy that never existed? She didn't answer. I walked to the door, then stopped. I called Mark. I told him everything. Claire's face went white. You what? Everything. About Dan, about the prom, about the night you tried to kiss him. You had no right. You had no right to lie to me on my wedding day. My voice was shaking, but I didn't care anymore. You had no right to try to destroy my marriage because you couldn't handle yours. And I am done being the sister who forgives you just because we share DNA. I opened the door. Please, Claire said. Her voice broke. Please don't do this. He'll leave me. That's not my problem anymore. I walked out. Behind me, I heard her start to cry, and for the first time in my life, I didn't go back. Dan was waiting for me by the dance floor, his hand extended. Everything okay? I took his hand. No, but it will be. We danced. The song was slow, and the fairy lights blurred around us, and I pressed my face into his shoulder so no one would see me cry. I love you, he said. I know. I would never. I know. After the dance, my mother pulled me aside. What happened with Claire? She just walked out. Mark came and got her, and they left without saying goodbye. I looked at my mother's face, her worried eyes, her furrowed brow, and wondered how much to tell her. How much she would believe. Claire had always been her favorite, the one who called every Sunday, the one who remembered to send flowers on their anniversary. She lied to me, I said. About Dan. She tried to ruin my wedding. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Oh, honey, are you sure? Dan told me everything. About the night she tried to kiss him. About the lies she's been telling Mark for years. I took a breath. She needs help, Mom. Professional help. And until she gets it, I can't have her in my life. My mother looked toward the door where Claire had disappeared. Her eyes were wet. She's always been jealous of you. I thought she'd grow out of it. Did you know about Dan? A long pause. I suspected. When she married Mark so fast, I wondered, but I didn't want to believe it. I kissed my mother's cheek. I love you, but I can't fix this for her. I can't keep being the person she blames for her own unhappiness. My mother nodded slowly. I'll talk to her. Try to get her to see someone. Good, because Mark is filing for divorce. The color drained from my mother's face. What? She's been comparing him to Dan for 4 years, telling him Dan was her ex-boyfriend, that he should have been the one she married. I shook my head. You can't build a marriage on a lie, and she's been lying to everyone, including herself. My mother didn't say anything. She just stood there, staring at the door, as the band struck up another song and the reception carried on without us. 6 months later, I got a letter. It was handwritten, on cream-colored stationery, with no return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. Dear Sarah, I'm not writing this because I expect you to forgive me. I'm writing it because my therapist said I should. She said I need to take responsibility for what I did, even if the people I hurt don't want to hear it. I was jealous of you. Not just about Dan, about everything. You were always the one who made friends easily, who got the good grades without trying, who made everyone feel like they mattered. And I was the one who had to work for everything, who had to be loud so people would notice me, who had to pretend I didn't care when you got the thing I wanted. I'm not making excuses. I'm just explaining. Mark and I are divorced. It was final last month. He got the house and the dog, which is fair. I didn't fight him on anything. I owed him that much. I'm seeing a therapist twice a week. She says I have borderline traits, which is a fancy way of saying I don't know how to handle rejection. I build fantasies in my head about how things should be, and then I get angry when reality doesn't match up. I built a fantasy about Dan, about who he was and what he could give me, and when he chose you, I couldn't accept that the fantasy wasn't real. I'm sorry. I know those words don't mean much coming from me, but I wanted you to hear them anyway. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to get better. For real this time. If you ever want to talk, I'll be here, but I understand if you don't. Your sister Claire. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it and put it in the drawer of my nightstand, next to the wedding program from our ceremony. Dan came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. Everything okay? I leaned into him. My sister wrote me a letter. What did it say? I thought about it. About the years of competition I hadn't recognized. The jealousy I'd mistaken for indifference. The sister I'd loved and lost and maybe could love again, someday, from a safe distance. It said she's sorry. Are you going to write back? I turned around and looked at my husband. At the life we were building together. At the future that stretched out in front of us, bright and uncertain and completely our own. Not today, I said. But maybe someday. He kissed my forehead. Whenever you're ready. And that was the thing, wasn't it? The thing Claire had never understood. Love wasn't about choosing between people. It wasn't a competition with winners and losers. It was about showing up day after day and choosing the same person over and over again. Dan chose me. I chose him. And Claire was going to have to learn how to choose herself. I closed the drawer and walked into the kitchen, where the coffee was waiting and the morning sun was streaming through the window. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was real. And real, I was learning, was so much better than perfect.